It is on.
All right, so do just a little bit of 200. Make sure fingers want to work. And I see, did you notice, period of time, his or her, skid marks? Have all those briefs? All right, let's do about 3 minutes at 200. So
Okay. All right. I got this.
All right, begins with me. We are now returning on the record after our lunch break, and we will pick up with the questions. Are you ready, Ms. Green?
Yes.
All right, we were talking about the procedure you have to go through on the bus when you see a problem as you are driving. Is that right?
Yes.
Now, tell us, what is that procedure?
Well, if you look in the mirror and you see that someone is standing, you tell them to sit down.
Did you use that procedure just before you made this left-hand turn?
I don't remember.
When you stopped the bus, do you know if it left any skid marks on the ground?
I don't know if it left any skid marks.
When the bus stopped and Mr. Fry had hit his head, did you ever get out of the bus?
No.
Did you hit anything when you made that left-hand turn?
No.
But you were aware that Mr. Fry had hit his head on something and you saw that in the rearview mirror?
No, I didn't know that right away.
Once you arrived at the school, Mr. Fry told you that he hit his head.
Yes.
Did you see any visible injuries?
He seemed to have a lump on his head.
Once you arrived at the school, did you accompany Mr. Fry inside?
Yes.
And where did you go?
We went to the main office.
Who did you see there?
I took him to the principal.
What is his or her name?
I don't know.
Okay, and what did you say to him?
I told him about the incident that happened on the bus with Mr. Fry.
Okay, who is the principal?
I don't know his name.
But it is a he?
Yes, it's a man.
What did the principal say?
Well, he looked at Mr. Fry and said maybe it will knock some sense into him.
Did he say anything else?
He asked me if I thought Mr. Fry was all right, and I said yes.
When you said yes, what did you base that on?
Based on what Mr. Fry told me.
You didn't do any kind of first aid for him, did you?
No.
Did you have any training of any sort for that?
No, we're not allowed to give first aid.
All right, I changed my mind. 2 minutes at 200. Now let's do a little 210, then right up. So this is 210. Did you leave after this conversation with the principal?
Yes.
Do you have any knowledge of the nurse coming in or anything like that?
No, well, when I left the office, the principal's office, Mr. Fry was still in the main office. I saw the nurse had come out to get him. I asked Mr. Fry if he was okay, and he said yes.
Did you ask any questions of the nurse?
No.
Did you tell the nurse anything?
No.
Did you continue on this same route for the remainder of that year?
Yes.
Are you still on that route?
No.
Did you notice after this incident that Mr. Fry was not at the bus stop for some period of time?
Yes, it was for 4 days.
Did you make a note to that effect as to who gets on the bus?
Well, just because of this incident, I made a note of that.
That was not a routine procedure for you?
No.
That was something you did because of this incident, is that right?
Right.
What day of the week was this, do you know?
I believe it was a Tuesday.
When something like this happens, do you have to file any type of a report?
Yes.
Did you file such a report?
Yes.
And that was with the bus company?
Yes.
Did you have to file anything with the police?
No.
Is this report a typewritten report?
Yes.
All right, 225. Let's do about 5 minutes at 225. Who does that report? Who actually writes the report? Is it you or someone else?
I write the report.
You completed a report for this?
Yes.
How many pages was that report?
1 page.
Aside from completing the report, did you have to talk to any supervisor or any management personnel at the bus company?
Yes.
Did you do that in this case?
Yes.
Who did you talk to?
Joyce, China, and Terry and Jackie.
Does Terry have a last name?
I don't know it.
Do you know Jackie's last name?
Perone.
Perone?
Something like that.
What are their capacities with the bus company?
At that time, Jackie was the safety supervisor, and Joyce was the terminal supervisor, and Terry was the woman who trained me. She was the trainer.
When you had that training prior to starting in September of 2002, it was this person by the name of Terry that gave you the training, is that correct?
Yes.
Did any of the other people give you any training?
No.
Does Terry still work there?
Yes.
I take it you had previous problems with Mr. Fry on this bus?
Yes.
There was a term used earlier called written up?
Yes.
Tell us, what does does that mean?
And when there is a discipline problem on the bus that you think you want the school to know about, you write them up on these forms that they give you.
These are forms that the school gives you?
The school provides them, or you can go into the bus company and get them.
Have you ever written Mr. Fry up before?
I had written him up once before.
Do you recall when in the school year that was?
No, I don't.
Okay, do you recall why he was written up?
Oh, yes.
What was that for?
It was reported to me, and I reported it to the school from this man. And because I did not witness it, but it was reported to me from 3 or 4 girls that he was sitting in his seat exposing himself.
Do you have that report with you today?
No.
What did you do with it?
I gave it to the school.
Did you keep a copy of it?
No, I didn't.
Did the bus company keep a copy of it?
I don't know.
Is there a procedure then for filling out these forms, and who is supposed to get this type of information?
I know I filled out the form and handed it to the teacher who was outside the bus when the bus arrived at the school.
You realize this is a fairly serious allegation, don't you?
Yes.
Does your bus company ever keep any of these forms?
I don't know.
Do you turn them into them?
Yes.
Do you ever tell people about them?
What do you mean, tell people about them?
If you are having a particular problem with a child on a route, is there anything to your knowledge that the bus company could do in terms of correcting the situation?
If there is a major problem, they can contact the school. But basically, the driver can contact the school on his own.
This incident that you alluded to, where you had written up Mr. Fry for this incident, you did not witness this personally, you said.
No.
Did you ever follow up with anyone about that?
No, I did not.
Did anyone ever contact you or follow up with you about this from the school?
No.
Can you identify these young ladies that made this allegation?
No.
So from September in '02 up until the time of this incident when you had written Mr. Fry up, that was the only time you had to write him up?
Since I was new at this, I wanted to try to do my job without writing up students, discipline them without writing them up unless it was absolutely necessary. And I felt this was absolutely necessary.
So I take it your answer is a yes.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Where was Mr. Fry assigned seat?
I don't remember if he was in his assigned seat at that time. I don't remember.
What was his assigned seat?
I don't remember.
Was it in the front of the bus, the back of the bus?
The back of the bus.
Since this incident occurred, did you have any problems with Mr. Fry on the bus for the remainder of the year?
No.
Did you drive the same route the next year?
Not the next year or after the incident.
Let me back up so we have it straight. You stayed on that route for half of the school year?
Yes.
When you started up again in September of 2003, did you have the same route?
No.
Did you go to the same school?
No.
So you were driving under another contract that the bus company had with some other school?
Yes.
Now, since June of 2003, have you had any contact at all with Mr. Fry?
No.
How about with his family?
No.
When he came back to school, was he riding your bus?
Yes.
I am talking about immediately after this incident occurred where he hit his head. You said he was out of school for 4 days, is that right?
Yes.
So when he came back to school, he was riding on your bus?
Yes.
Did you have any conversations with him during that period of time when he came back after this incident in June of 2003?
No.
Did he have any conversations with you about it?
No, he never spoke to me.
You testified earlier that you provided some sort of a written report to your employer.
Yes.
Did you observe Mr. Fry throwing this can from the rearview mirror that you testified to about before?
Yes.
You saw that in your rearview mirror.
Yes, I did.
Did you observe the young lady throw it back at him in the rearview mirror?
Yes.
How often did that take place on this day? Did it happen more than once?
Yes.
How many times did you see him throw it?
I saw him throw it twice.
Did you see the girl throw it twice too?
Yes, she threw it back at him twice and then he didn't throw it again.
After the second time, did you want to put a stop to it?
Yes, I was afraid someone would get hurt.
And your plan to do this was to get the two people separated, you said?
Yes.
And that's when you told Mr. Fry to move up to the front of the bus?
Yes.
All right, some rear view mirrors in there too, RFM. Oh, look. That was perfect. This is
Timing.
all right, how about a little of that so you can practice rear view mirror brief at 2:40. RFM. RVM. All right. So this is, I'll tell you how long afterwards, a couple minutes maybe. All right, so 2:40. What was his assigned seat?
I don't remember.
Was it in the front of the bus, the back of the bus?
The back of the bus.
Since this incident occurred, did you have any problems with Mr. Fry on the bus for the remainder of the year?
No.
Did you drive the same route the next year?
Not the next year or the after the incident.
Let me back up so we have it straight. You stayed on that route for half of the school year.
Yes.
When you started up again in September of 2003, did you have the same route?
No.
Did you go to the same school?
No.
So you were driving under another contract that the bus company had with some other school?
Yes.
Now, since June of 2003, have you had any contract at all with Mr. Fry?
No.
How about with his family?
No.
When he came back to school, was he riding your bus?
Yes.
I am talking about immediately after this incident occurred where he hit his head. You said he was out of school for 4 days. Is that right?
Yes.
So when he came back to school, he was riding on your bus?
Yes.
Did you have any conversations with him during that period of time when he came back after this incident in June of 2003?
No.
Did he have any conversations with you about it?
No, he never spoke to me.
You testified earlier that you provided some sort of written report to your employer?
Yes.
Did you observe Mr. Fry throwing this can from the rearview mirror that you testified to about before?
Yes.
You saw that in your rearview mirror?
Yes, I did.
Did you observe the young lady throw it back at him in the rearview mirror?
Yes.
How often did that take place on this day? Did it happen more than once?
Yes.
How many times did you see him throw it?
I saw him throw it twice.
Did you see the girl throw it twice too?
Yes, she threw it back at him twice, and then he didn't throw it again.
After the second time, did you want to put a stop to it?
Yes, I was afraid someone would get hurt.
And your plan to do this was to get the two people separated, you said?
Yes.
And that's when you told Mr. Fry to move up to the front of the bus?
Yes.
That seemed pretty nice. Want to try it at 250? Nice for us, only?
Yeah.
Let's try 250. All right. All right, same thing at 250. What was his assigned seat?
I don't remember.
Was it in the front of the bus, the back of the bus?
The back of the bus.
Since this incident occurred, did you have any problems with Mr. Fry on the bus for the remainder of the year?
No.
Did you drive the same route the next year?
Not the next year or after the incident.
Let me back up so we have it straight. You stayed on that route for half of the school year.
Yes.
When you started up again in September of 2003, did you have the same route?
No.
Did you go to the same school?
No.
So you were driving under another contract that the bus company had with some other school?
Yes.
Now, since June of 2003, have you had any contact at all with Mr. Fry?
No.
How about with his family?
No.
When he came back to school, was he riding your bus?
Yes.
I am talking about immediately after this incident occurred where he hit his head. You said he was out of school for 4 days, is that right?
Yes.
So when he came back to school, he was riding on your bus?
Yes.
Did you have any conversations with him during that period of time when he came back after this incident in June of 2003?
No.
Did he have any conversations with you about it?
No, he never spoke to me.
You testified earlier that you provided some sort of a written report to your employer?
Yes.
Did you observe Mr. Fry throwing this can from the rearview mirror that you testified to about before?
Yes.
You saw that in your rearview mirror?
Yes, I did.
Did you observe the young lady throw it back at him in the rearview mirror?
Yes.
How often did that take place on this day? Did it happen more than once?
Yes.
How many times did you see him throw it?
I saw him throw it twice.
Did you see the girl throw it twice too?
Yes, she threw it back at him twice, and then he didn't throw it again.
After the second time, did you want to put a stop to it?
Yes, I was afraid someone would get hurt.
And your plan to do this was to get the two people separated, you said?
Yes.
And that's when you told Mr. Fry to move up to the front of the bus?
Yes.
All right, just for kicks, one more time at 225, so this should sound a lot nicer. All right, 225, one more time. What was his assigned seat?
I don't remember.
Was it in the front of the bus, the back of the bus?
The back of the bus.
Since this incident occurred, did you have any problems with Mr. Fry on the bus for the remainder of the year?
No.
Did you drive the same route the next year?
Not the next year or after the incident.
Let me back up so we have it straight. You stayed on that route for half of the school year.
Yes.
When you started up again in September of 2003, did you have the same route?
No.
Did you go to the same school?
No.
So you were driving under another contract that the bus company had with some other school?
Yes.
Now, since June of 2003, 2003, have you had any contact at all with Mr. Fry?
No.
How about with his family?
No.
When he came back to school, was he riding your bus?
Yes.
I am talking about immediately after this incident occurred where he hit his head. You said he was out of school for 4 days, is that right?
Yes.
So when he came back to school, he was riding on your bus?
Yes.
Did you have any conversations with him during that period of time when he came back after this incident in June of 2003?
No.
Did he have any conversations with you about it?
No, he never spoke to me.
You testified earlier that you provided some sort of a written report to your employer.
Yes.
Did you observe Mr. Fry throwing this can from the rearview mirror that you testified to about before?
Yes.
You saw that in your rearview mirror?
Yes, I did.
Did you observe the young lady throw it back at him in the rearview mirror?
Yes.
How often did that take place on this day? Did it happen more than once?
Yes.
How many times did you see him throw it?
I saw him throw it twice.
Did you see the girl throw it twice too?
Yes, she threw it back at him twice and then he didn't throw it again.
After the second time, did you want to put a stop to it?
Yes, I was afraid someone would get hurt.
And your plan to do this was to get the two people separated, you said?
Yes.
And that's when you told Mr. Fry to move up to the front of the bus?
Yes.
All right, let's go back up to 240. I see before the accident. BEX, right? All right, let's do 240.
Okay.
Get you right, Strawberry Street. All right, 3 minutes at 2:40. Where did you live prior to that?
719 West Strawberry Street,
And that's in Orange.
Orange, California.
Were you living at the Strawberry Street address on the day of the accident?
Yes.
Do you recall the day of the accident?
It was July 13,
Do
2002.
you recall what day of the week that was?
No, I don't. I believe it was a Saturday, but I'm not 100% sure. It could have been a Sunday.
With whom, if anyone, do you reside at the Belmont Avenue address?
With my children,
What are your children's names?
Daryl and Kareem.
And how old is Daryl?
Daryl is 6.
And how old is Kareem?
He's 14 now.
At the Strawberry Street address on the day of the accident, who did you live with?
My 2 children, Daryl and Kareem.
Are you married?
No.
Have you ever been married?
No.
On 7/13/02, the day of the accident, were you operating a motor vehicle?
Yes, I
What
was.
type of car were you operating?
It was a Chevy.
What was the year of that car?
I believe it was an
Who
01.
was the owner of the car?
I was the owner.
Was it registered in your name only?
Yes, it was.
When did you purchase the car or obtain title to the car?
It was about 2 months before the accident.
Did you purchase the car or was it given to you?
It was given to me.
What model of Chevy was the car?
It was a
You
Corsica.
said the car was given to you. Who gave the car to you?
It was a friend.
Who was that friend?
It was my boyfriend.
What was his name?
It was Ricky.
What was Ricky's last name?
Santana.
Where did he reside?
7th and Oxford. I don't remember the address.
Does he reside there now?
I don't know.
He resided there when you got the car from him?
Right?
At the time of the accident, were you covered by any automobile insurance?
No.
Was your car insured by any automobile insurance on the day of the accident?
No, it was not.
Was it ever covered during the course of the time that you owned it before the accident?
No.
What did you use the car for?
To go shopping, to go to the spa.
To the where?
At that time, I was going to the
A
spa.
spa?
Yes.
Which spa was that?
It was Bally's.
Which one?
The one on East Road.
Would it be fair to say that it was for personal use, the automobile, the Corsica?
Yes.
Were you employed at the time of the accident?
No.
When was the last time that you were employed?
You mean before the accident?
Yes.
It was 2005 or 2002.
And with whom were you employed then?
University of Chapman.
As what? What was your job?
I was a data entry clerk.
Why did you leave that employment?
Well, at the time, I was having problems with my oldest son.
Which son was that?
Kareem.
Were there any other reasons that you left employment with the University of Chapman?
Yes, because at the time he was getting into trouble with school and I was running back and forth from school to work.
So it was a family problem with him.
Right.
There weren't any other reasons that you left your employment?
No.
Have you been employed since?
Yes, I have.
Are you employed now?
Yes, I am.
All right. Where are you employed now?
At the City Health Associates.
Where is City Health Associates?
It is in South Orange.
When did you start working there?
It was April of 2003 or 2004. I mean 2004.
What do you do there?
I'm a registration clerk. I register patients.
Between leaving your employment with the University of Chapman and beginning your employment as a registration clerk at the City Health Associations of South Orange in April of 2004, did you have any employment in that period of time?
Yes.
Lots of names in there. Okay.
Oh, okay, let's try that. We get to 6?
All right, you ready for your 240s? And then we'll do 225s. Got hot, ain't it? You guys hot?
That was just me.
Oh, did you want to turn it on?
It's on, maybe
Oh, it's
just
on?
make it cool, you know, the. All right, so for 240, number 1, so these will each be a minute, remember? So we'll have, we have Marco Corporation, MARCO, and City Health Associations, and University of Chapman, and Orange.
City Health Associates. Associates.
Associate.
Okay.
All right, so. Here's 240 number 1 on 6-7. And I will ask.
And I will answer.
All right, ready? Why don't we do it this way? Why don't we start with the first employment that you had after you left the University of Chapman?
It was with the Marco Corporation.
When did you start with Marco Corporation?
I believe it was in November of 2003 or 2002.
Are you sure, or are you guessing?
Well, I am guessing.
It was sometime in November. Maybe it was 02 or maybe it was 03.
I know I worked there 6 months before I started with the City Health Associates.
Okay, then this probably would have been November of 03 if you started with them in April of 2004.
Well, I guess that's right.
What did you do at Marco Corporation?
I was a clerk. I just entered data into the computer.
So as I understand it, your employment, regardless of any gaps for whatever reason, family reasons or whatever, was with the University of Chapman as a data entry clerk, and then you worked for Marco Corporation after that for about 6 months. Then you started your employment with City Health Associates.
City Health Associates.
Is that in South Orange? That's where you work now, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Ms. Chambers, I want to direct your attention to the day of the accident. I think you indicated earlier it was a Saturday. All right, so number 2 we'll have Easton, E-A-S-T-O-N, and Church Streets, those are. And a place called Paws Store, P-A-W-S. All right, here's 240, number 2. Was anybody in your car with you at the time of the accident?
No.
Why don't you tell me in your own words what happened?
Well, I was sitting at the light on Easton in Church, but I was on Easton waiting for the cars to go by. After 3 or 4 cars went by, after that, before I knew it, someone hit me and knocked me across the intersection up into the Paws Store where they sell dog food at.
Where did your car end up?
It's like a parking lot where they sell the dog food at Paws.
Were you stopped at the time that your car was hit?
Yes.
Do you remember if your foot was on the brake or the gas pedal or neither?
On the
You
brake.
said you were sitting for 3 or 4 cars that went by.
Yes.
Were you intending to turn?
No, I was going to go straight.
When you said 3 or 4 cars went by, where were they?
I was on Easton Road in Church. They were coming across. The cars were going across, turning onto Easton.
Is that intersection controlled by a traffic light?
Yes, it is.
And what color was the light for you at the time these cars were going by?
They were red.
At the time you got hit, what color was the light?
At the time I got hit, you mean?
Yes.
It was red.
Were you the first car in line?
Yes.
All right, and 240 number 3, we still have Paws, P-A-W-S, Easton Road and Church. All right, here's 240 number 3. This was as you were sitting at the intersection.
That's right.
I want to talk about this place, Pause, where your car ended up. Would that have been across the intersection and to the right, or across the intersection and to the left?
Across the intersection and to the right.
Did your car jump the curb?
The curb sort of slides in. It's like right there, like pulling up into a parking lot.
Was your car in the intersection when it got hit?
Yes.
Let me back up for a moment. Where Easton Road and Church Road meet, you say you were on Easton Road. Had any part of your car entered where Easton and Church meet when you were hit? Had any part of your car entered that intersection?
No.
Okay, so you were in back of the intersection on Easton Road when you were hit.
Right.
Was your car entirely in the parking lot at Pause when it came to rest after being hit?
Half of it was in the parking lot and the front of it was on the sidewalk.
Was it the sidewalk that was adjacent to Easton Road or the sidewalk that was adjacent to Church?
Easton Road.
Would it be fair to say that your front tires were on the sidewalk on Easton Road and the back tires were in the parking lot of the business called Pause?
Yes.
Were you wearing your seatbelt at that time?
No, I was not.
All right. Let's do our 225s. All right, so 225 number 1, you will cap Sarah Childs, Sarachilds, Jenny, Jenny, Holly Drive, Chelsea, ChelSea, and Mercy Hospital. All right. All right, here we go. 225 number 1. Ready? Would you state your name, please?
Sarah Childs.
I am going to ask you some questions today. The defendant's attorney and the court may ask you some questions as well. Please remember to keep your voice up so that the judge and the jurors and the court reporter can hear you, all right?
Yes.
Now, I am going to ask you to think back to July 8, 2004. On that date, did you see anyone that you see in the courtroom right now?
Yes.
Can you point to the person that you've identified?
Right there.
So you are identifying the defendant?
Yes.
Where were you when you saw the defendant?
I was over at Jenny's house.
Where does Jenny live?
She lives on Holly Drive.
And do you know what 100 block?
With the 5400 block.
And is that here in Chelsea?
Yes, it is.
When you were there on that date, do you remember what time it was? Was it in the morning, the afternoon, or at night that you first saw the defendant?
I think it was in the afternoon.
Now tell us if you knew the defendant before July the 8th.
8.
How did you know him?
He used to be my boyfriend.
On July 8, 2004, was he your boyfriend?
No.
So he was your boyfriend before that time?
Yes.
When was the last time you saw him as your boyfriend?
About 3 weeks before that.
So on that date, July 8, 2004, can you just, in your own words, tell the court and jury how it came to be that you and he were at the same place at the same time?
And somebody told him where I was at.
All right, then what happened?
He came at me. He started punching me, saying, I don't love you no more either. He started beating me. He picked up a crowbar and hit me in the head with it.
Wait a minute. When he first came into the house, how did he get in?
Jenny let him
At
in.
any time did you ask if he could come in the house?
No.
When the defendant came into Jenny's house, what, if anything, did he say to you?
He started screaming, I don't love you no more either.
Did you say anything to the defendant?
No.
What happened next?
He started picking up furniture and throwing it around.
What furniture did the defendant pick up?
A television table, the chair in the front of the television. Whatever he saw, he picked it up and threw it around.
Then what happened next, if anything?
He hit me with the crowbar.
Do you know where he got the crowbar from?
Jenny had it in her house.
Could you show me with your hands how big this crowbar was?
About like that.
You're showing us it was about a foot long.
I guess, I don't know.
What was the crowbar made of, if you know?
Steel, I guess.
What did he do with the crowbar?
He hit me with it.
Where did he hit you?
He hit my head, my knees, and I got hit in the face. He caught me on the chin. I tried to duck, but he caught me on the chin.
How many times, if you know, did the defendant hit you with the crowbar?
I don't know. He swung it at me so many times, but because of where I'm hurt, I guess about 5 times.
When the defendant hit you with the crowbar, was it a hard hit or was it just a soft swipe?
Oh no, he hit me hard. He was swinging hard.
At that point when he was hitting you with the crowbar, was he saying anything to you?
He was screaming at me. He was screaming, "I'll kill you, I'll kill you."
What were you doing?
Trying to get away from him.
What were you doing to try to get away from him?
I was running. I was trying to hide. I was trying to get out of the house. I was trying to do whatever I could.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. What was the last thing you said?
Whatever I could. I shut the door so he could not get to me in the other room.
When the defendant first hit you, which room were you in?
I was in the bedroom.
And is this a house or an apartment?
Well, it's an apartment.
After he hit you the first time, what did you do?
I started running out of the room. There was nowhere to run to.
Besides hitting you with the crowbar, did the defendant do anything else?
Yes, he kicked me in the head. I had fallen down, and while I was on the ground, he kicked me in the head.
How many times did he kick you?
Once, maybe twice, but I got up.
When he was kicking you, did he have any shoes on?
I think he had sneakers on. I'm not sure.
At any point, did you hit the defendant?
No.
At any point, did you have any weapons on you?
No.
Now, you indicated that Jenny was in her house, right?
Yes.
Besides yourself, Jenny and the defendant, was anyone else there?
No.
When the defendant was doing these things to you, what, if anything, was Jenny doing that you could see?
She was screaming at him. She was pulling at him. She was trying to get him off of me.
What was she doing to try to get him off of you?
She jumped on the bed to try to get him away from me. She shoved him. She tried to block him from going into rooms when he was chasing me.
At some point, did the defendant stop?
No.
For about how long was it that the defendant was hitting you with the crowbar and kicking you?
About 20 minutes. I don't know. I was unconscious.
What happened next that you know of?
Well, I was in the hospital.
Which hospital did you go to?
Mercy Hospital.
When you were at Mercy Hospital, what parts of your body did they look at?
My head, my chin, and my neck. That's all I know.
How long were you in the hospital?
I was there about 3 days.
As a result of the defendant hitting you with the crowbar, were you hurt?
Yes, but I couldn't get a lot of medical treatment. I had no insurance.
What did you do for your injuries?
I treated them myself, and my mom helped me out.
Tell me, what was the main injury you had?
Well, I've got a lot of headaches.
Any questions on 225 number 1? All right, let's do another one. So this one will cap Mrs. Mason Reynolds, Reynolds, Gaines, Gains, Mr. Finley, Finley, Mr. Dunn, Dunn, Mrs. Mason, Mason, and looks like that's it. Maybe Mrs. Jones, Jones. All right. All right, so 225, number 2, it's 6-7. I'm talking to Mrs. Mason. Here we go. Mrs. Mason, I ask you the question again. You told me there was a day in which you said you put on your glasses, you looked at the plaque and said, this is a Reynolds and this is a Gaines, and Mr. Finley was standing nearby and said nothing, right?
Right,
You told me on another day Mr. Dunn was in that same living room.
yes.
I want to know whether the day Mr. Dunn was in the living room came before or after the day you said this is a Reynolds and a Gaines.
No, that I don't remember exactly, but the first time I didn't think they were going to leave those paintings. I remember that.
Mrs. Mason, please try to.
I do pay attention to the questions.
I want to know which happened first. Did Mr. Dunn come to the house first, or did you say this is a Reynolds and this is a Gaines first? It didn't happen on the same day. I want to know which happened first.
I think it was first when I was there by myself.
All right, and then later Mr. Dunn came?
Later.
And Mr. Dunn is a painter, isn't he?
Yes.
And the reason that he came was to see whether or not he might have an opinion as to the value of those two paintings. Is that right?
No, sir, that is not right.
Why did he come to the house?
Because Mr. Dunn was house sitting with the Jarretts too, and of course in that time I didn't even know that they were going to leave the painting.
You knew there was a Reynolds and a Gaines in the house, didn't you?
That's right.
And you had just said at that very time that you had said that you were going to be able to sell those,
Right, but that was,
so that you were thinking about buying the house, including those two valuable paintings.
yes, after I had spoken to you.
Isn't it correct that when you first brought Mr. Dunn over, you had already noticed the plaques and you were already thinking of buying these two valuable paintings? Is that right?
No, because we were not sure at that time.
You were thinking that you might do it, is that right?
Now, what do you mean?
You were thinking that you might buy the house with the two valuable paintings in it at the time.
No, that is not right, because we didn't know that they were going to leave the painting.
Now let me understand this.
And when Mr. Dunn came, he said they are never going to leave those paintings because that is a Reynolds. He didn't know they were going to leave them.
Let me go back to the time that you first noticed these plaques.
When I looked at the house, maybe the first time I saw it, I didn't even know there was a piano in the house. I didn't see the piano. There is a baby grand in the house, and I didn't know there was a baby grand. I didn't look.
On that occasion that you didn't notice the baby grand, you did notice these two paintings, is that right?
I looked at the paintings.
You noticed that?
Yes.
And that may have been the first time you were in the house,
Might
right?
have been, yes.
When you noticed them, you said, look, this is a Reynolds and Gaines, right?
Yes.
What else did you say on that occasion? Something about...
We just went over it very quickly. It was just a conversation about it. You know, when you see the house, it happened to be a beautiful house, and it looked like a perfect house. He looked at certain things and would say,
When you looked at that particular plaque on the Gaines and the plaque on the Reynolds, you said, this is a Reynolds, this is a Gaines, and you didn't go on to say something about selling?
later on that came.
Later on.
Not that first day. The first day I just looked at the things and said, gee, this is a Gaines. That's when, but we talked about the antiques too. I certainly never thought that they were going to leave the paintings in the house because it just isn't done usually.
So after you had seen the paintings, you pointed them out to Mr. Finley,
I didn't point them out to him.
mentioned them to him.
No, they left me alone more or less to look at the house. You don't go with the owner. They don't go around with you when you look at the house.
So you were more or less alone.
With Mrs. Jones, she was there.
You and Mrs. Jones were more or less alone when you noticed the plaque.
When I first noticed, I think it was the first time. It might have been the second visit.
On the occasion that you first noticed the two plaques on the paintings, you and Mrs. Jones were more or less alone, is that right?
Possibly.
Mr. Finley was not nearby.
Mr. Finley was usually with us.
Was he nearby when you noticed those and pointed them out?
I had to put on my glasses. I can't remember.
I understand. Where was Mr. Finley when all this happened?
He must have been standing next to me.
Must have been or may have.
No.
He may have not been.
He was there. I know he was there.
You were not more or less alone with Mrs. Jones, were you?
One day I was alone with her. The first time I went into the house, I think she showed it to me alone. The second time I met Mr. Finley and Mrs. Finley later on.
When was the first time you put on your glasses and said this is a Reynolds?
I don't know if it was the first or second time.
You think that the first time you saw the paintings you were alone?
I am sure that the first I didn't mention it.
So there was a first time you didn't mention it.
The first time walked through the house to see what it looked like.
Did you notice the plaque that said Gaines?
No.
You were more or less alone with Mrs. Jones?
We looked at the furniture, the house, and bedrooms and see how the house was situated.
You were more or less alone with Mrs. Jones?
I don't know if Mr. Finley went with us.
On that occasion, did you notice or did you not notice the plaque that said Reynolds?
Not the first time.
Did you notice the plaque that said Gaines?
The first time I looked at the house very superficially.
Did you subsequently point out this is a Reynolds and Gaines?
Later on, Mr. Cooper, the first time I looked at the house, I had no intention of buying it right away.
I am not asking you about that. You may not tell me anything that I don't ask you about. I want to be clear. How'd you do? Get better?